Hello, everybody. It is September the 3rd. That makes it a Wednesday, which is really odd because we usually do this on a Tuesday, which means we're bending time yet again to do it on a Wednesday so that we can have a special guest joining us, which you can see there. We'll do that introduction in just a second. Welcome to Top Draw. This is going to be our not final episode on Infinity Wars. We knew that there would be 5 episodes because, as we said, when we do these particular kinds of previews and reviews, if someone really screws up the barrier to entry, we don't continue. But we knew from the get-go that Infinity Wars had that certain something special, that je ne sais quoi, that some of us look for in TCGs. And in fact, both Marsh and I are going to be giving Infinity Wars the same ranking and stars and pentagrams, which
She
is going to
copied
be...
me.
Yes, my entire desire was to copy Marsh. I want to be Dr. Marsh when I grow up.
I can't blame you.
I really don't. But anyway, the reason why this is not the final episode is because we have been gifted. The higher-ups and the gods over at Infinity Wars TCG have lent to us Taramis, who will be interviewing next week. And that will be our final show on Infinity Wars for the moment, because we will come back. We always come back to see where things are and what's going on. But first, I introduce, as you know, my co-host with all of the mostest, he who is so much smarter than me, Dr. Marshmallows.
That was the worst attempt at alliteration I've ever seen you do.
I wasn't trying alliteration today.
Oh, it's broken. It's out of character. No, that's it. I'm done. Bye, guys. Fear me, I will be your doom.
Fantastic. And we are joined as a special treat. For those of you who watched last week's episode, you saw me have a chance to actually speak with Naudilent for quite a bit, actually, about Infinity Wars in its current state, and including the concerns community had for going gold last week. But now we have Naudilent with us, both of us at the same time.
Greetings, Internet.
Greetings, Intertubes.
It's like a melting pot of accents.
Not quite, because I am American, so
Well,
I
not
have an
quite,
American accent.
yeah.
I just live in the United Kingdom. So
Quick,
we have...
get Misbah here.
No, absolutely not. But we have an Australian, we have an American living in the UK, and we have an American living in America. That is our show today. Time zones, we stretch them. Doctor Who magic. Ooh. Okay.
Indeed.
So
The
today...
internet is bigger on the inside.
It is. It is without a shadow of a doubt, especially once you get to the darker sides. Everyone's been to the dark side of the internet. That moment when you realize you've gone too far. Turn back, cannot unsee.
There's no escape.
Cannot unsee, yes. But we have...
Follow me, let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes, children.
Remember, we here at Top Draw do not sanction or approve the use of Dr. Marshmallow in any way, shape, or form to help you find the bottom of the internet, because he will help you find the bottom of the internet. Just know that it's not something that we necessarily condone. Anyway.
He will find your bottom on the internet.
It's like one of those Twitter hack things, whatever it was called.
You mean the one with the iStore where they actually got all... Let's not go into naked celebrities on this show, and let us instead focus on Infinity Wars. Sound good, guys?
Okay, fine.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Ruin all my fun.
Well, you know, I live for that, Marsh.
This is true. Alright, let's continue.
Yes.
We're going places, we're doing things. We must get to the end of this show so we can sacrifice my new serf on our altar. We must consume souls.
Yes, and if we're lucky, we'll find ourselves in the moment to really reveal just potentially how developers in Infinity Wars come up with the card designs, at least from one person's perspective. But yeah, so today it's all about community. And as you may be aware, those of you who follow us here at MMOBuff, I am a bit of a bitch about community. If a community is crap or the developers are crap to their community, I will not be happy, because I firmly believe a good game is survivable if you've got a community. A bad game can survive if you have a community. But in the end, if you don't have a community, what are you doing? Just saying. So we're going to be talking about the community with a community member. This
Yes.
is a first
Novel
for
idea
us.
at
I am, in
best.
fact, a community member.
Yes. Well, this is the interesting thing to me because when we started doing Infinity Wars, we were still doing the stream through Twitch, and now we do this through YouTube. And yet, even on YouTube, we're still getting a massive amount of response for this game. It's like people are actively seeking out information and sharing information. So the fact that we have somebody from the community here is pretty telling when it comes to Infinity Wars, because you all sought us out. And that, to me, it just, not only that, you guys are nice. It's really weird.
It is
Most of
weird.
us.
It's disconcerting, is what it is. But even if we step beyond like just the very recent interactions we've had with Naudilent here, even since our very first episode, the community engagement has been, it's been spot on. It's been, people have been joining the show. People have been, linking the show in the global chat for other people to come in, and people have been engaging, and they've been emailing us, and people have been contacting us in game. Go look at this. Why, would you want to use this? How can I help? Sort of stuff. It's been really, like, the response from the community has been amazing, and I feel that's probably a combination of just the people in the community being good people. Like, you can't take that away from them. But also the fact that it's been Infinity Wars, one of Infinity Wars' goals, as I've seen it, to sort of foster that community paradigm, the community aspect to the game, instead of just having it as a game and a separate community. They're sort of one thing.
Yeah. I think,
Especially in the TCG.
well, you want to have interactions. I mean, we've covered quite a few games where your interactions are so limited, or there's no point to an interaction. There's no real feeling of a community. And yet in this, every time I turn around, it literally feels like it's all about the community. I am still a little bit miffed that it's a little difficult to figure out how to do the Master Apprentice program, but it's there.
If you click enough buttons, you will find it.
If you click enough buttons, you will also find a pot of gold hidden behind a rainbow with a little guy in a green outfit going,
I'm
Haven't
totally
found that
looking
button
for my
yet.
pot of gold right now.
great.
Clicking.
I'm joking,
clicking.
folks, although if the developers do put that in, I am sorry. Get a little pot of gold. Hey, speaking of gold, the game's gone gold.
The game has gone gold.
What a
Full
segue,
release
good lord.
As of today.
Yes. Well,
Wow.
yes.
Just, I don't know what to say now after that. I'm not sure if it was amazing or horrible.
We'll go with horrible because most of the stuff that comes out of my mouth is. So there you go. It's horrible.
That segue.
Yeah, that happened. We went there. Okay, so one of the things that I had mentioned with you last week, Naudilent, was the fact that there are concerns from the community about this whole concept of going gold. And as you said, it seemed a little bit divided. It seemed a little bit about, some people were kind of, yeah, and others were like, mm-hmm. Have you noticed in the community a change?
It's there. It's there. I would say that the vast majority of people who post on the forum, the fans who are so into the game that they take the time to interact with the forum, but good 90-95% of people writing about it, their opinion was, no, why now? It's not ready. Hold off. And once you lose the beta tag, everything changes.
Oh yeah.
Those concerns haven't been entirely allayed. Lightmare did put in a new trade UI, which is vital in a trading card game, and so far from what I'm hearing, it works quite well. On the flip side, it's a game that caters to the hardcore people who are really into the nuts and bolts of TCGs, people who like a lot of depth to their TCGs, but doesn't have the tournament features, your sideboards, your 2 out of 3s, in-game tournament. There are plans for it. They have a plan, but it's maybe half a year away from most of those features. And some memory leak issues. One or two new bugs introduced with the new patch, though that's really quite an improvement on every other patch they've ever had. So I'm certainly not going to complain, and they'll hotfix that. Overall, the new patch was greeted with cheers. A lot of people happy for some additional changes in the UI. They, for no real reason anyone could discern, changed the cost display on cards that actually obscured some of the art, and that change has been partially undone in the best way, I think. Let's see what other things we have here. They got introduced some new sound effects. They got some promotional things going on.
I have changed my profile image to match the gold image.
Yeah, we got new avatars for
Yes.
those who participated in the beta. There will be a 25% discount off boosters over the weekend. So if you have a chance to earn some IP, or if you want to throw some dollars at them, you can buy some Lightmare points and get a discount on the boosters.
Actually, I've got a question for you about that. Have you made any purchases with cards yet?
I have. I've actually sunk a bit of money into it. Sorry?
Can you gift them to people?
Gift the cards?
No. Can you gift Lightmare points to people?
No, there is currently no mechanism for that.
Sad face. Fix, please.
Sad face. I mean, if you want, I guess you could just give them money. Here, have a fistful of dollars, and they could buy their Lightmare points that way, or run down to the liquor store and
get something important.
And get something important. Marsh, no, not you.
Like mine.
But no, currently no way to transfer points.
Well, I just want to gift points to people.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that feature is going to be put in or not.
It may not. It's actually a design choice, and there are both pros and cons to both sides. It's something I can dig into.
Not just a design choice.
No, it is a big design choice.
It's a marketing choice as well. Yeah, but it's a marketing choice. That's like, and then there's economic issues that go into it as well.
Yeah. In the end, all the same. This weekend, folks, play.
Get to play in. You can earn a gold ticket that will change one of your cards into a gold card. I think they've made it so it will be soulbound. Or not. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what they've done with this, but reading in different areas, I do think it becomes soulbound, which means it becomes untradeable, but it will be that much prettier.
Now, I have to ask, as you who has over 80 decks, does the color of the card mean anything to you, or is it just like whatever?
It's pretty, is all it means. Now, if it's soulbound, it's just pretty. If it's not soulbound, then it does have an increased trade value. A plat or a gold or a foil card or a plat foil or gold foil card will give you better trade value if you wish to trade it away. So, and people do collect these. People really do look for these cards. So,
people always collect those sorts of cards, I feel.
I think that's kind of the point behind a TCG. Not a CCG, mind you, not an SCG, but a TCG. Collections, people. Trade them. It's all about the collections.
No, you're wrong, my dear. The thing that is about a TCG is crushing people's faces. That's what it's about. Nothing to do with trading.
Welcome to the extremes inside of Infinity Wars community. We have the I will crush your face because I am superior. We have the, hey, I've got 80 decks. Let me teach you a little thing about the decks. And you have the, this button does what?
Click and find out.
Agreed. Experiential
one
learning.
thing they don't have in play is an auction house where you can trade your cards that way, and that might actually
I don't really
If
want
they
them to implement
institute
one.
the auction house, that might allow transfers of infinity points indirectly rather than gifting somebody. You could actually do it that way.
It might, but it actually removes a big part of what I love about this game for the community. If you want to trade cards, you have to be in touch with the individual who you are trading with. If you put in an auction house, you put a layer of barrier between the people, and it starts to become less, hey, I've got this card to trade, is anybody interested? And becomes more, well, how can I game the system for the auction house? I think it's much, much better to have that not present. And because to me, that would keep the community fresh. Because if you want to trade cards, what do you need to do? You actually have to talk to people.
Yeah, and my trades, at least half my trades are not one-to-one. You're looking for this card, you've got this card to trade. Now, there's a lot of, if not haggling, at least like, well, you know, you want this rare, but all you have that I want is an epic card. Then, okay, what more of mine do you want for me to get that epic? So there's a lot of decision making and chat and that goes along with it. So an auction house, it might be nice in some respects, but it's not going to replace trading.
Oh,
absolutely. Auction houses are so hard to deal with. I'm sorry, but they are. And
it doesn't sound like it's an imminent inclusion for the game, but who knows? One thing Lightmare is a little cagey about. They really don't talk too much about what they're working on.
You can't blame
them. Recently, all we're doing is working on bugs. And it looks like they've gotten rid of a lot of those bugs they were working on. And didn't introduce
from a design and from a marketing point of view, it's a good idea to not say what you're working on and not say how you do things. Keep the community guessing for two reasons. One, it's very hard to get those second chances, which is something we've talked about before. It's hard to say we're going to do something, not produce, and then later on when you either get around to doing it or do something slightly different to get people back in. So it's that's the hard part. But also sometimes not having those answers is far more appealing to people than actually telling them what is and what isn't coming. Sometimes people will speculate so much and generate so much hype for something that you're not even planning on doing. You realize it's such a good thing to do because there's so much hype around it.
Well, see, that's a big part. If you leave speculation in the players' hands, they actually help you big time.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, you know, if you hinted out, hey, our next patch is going to be two-headed giants. Please, can you make it two-headed giants?
Never gonna happen.
We all want two-headed giant.
But let's just say that they say that that's what they're working on currently. And that's what they're planning on implementing. And all everyone is going to spend is their time talking about two-headed giant, two-headed giant, two-headed giant. If you don't say what you're working on and you say, we're looking at some kind of interesting play changes, maybe some modifications, maybe a new part of the game so that people can experience new styles of play. If you're vague, you let the community run off and you start to see the reactions of someone going, hey, maybe they're bringing out two-headed giants. And someone goes, no, they're going to bring out a whole new campaign. No, they're going to bring out these group play things. Or no, they're going to be modifying this. You start to be able to gauge from the community how they see things without putting your foot in your mouth the way Marsh does.
Yeah, no, I do it all the time. And the sad thing is, it's a really effective learning strategy that I implement all the time. Fucked if I could actually, be a part of it myself. But it's something you do to kids, and you go, I'm not going to tell you the answer. What are you going to do to get the answer? What do you think the answer is? Because that way you find out not what the answer is, but what's important around the answer and involving the answer, and from that you construct the answer, as opposed and therefore what actually the product that's produced has more meaning. As are most of my comments, they're either educational theories applied to game theories or game theories applied to educational theories, but it's one of those things where you need to you really do need to consider the community base as a marketer and as a producer and as a developer just as much as you need to sort of focus on the game itself, because ultimately your community does drive what you produce. And if the community feels like they've been involved in that production is much more meaningful to them, and therefore all these other things come from it, like more profit, more game time spent, and all this.
I think that's one of the complaints that the community has had with Lightmare, is that they haven't struck just the right balance between saying we are working on things but we can't give you a schedule, and we want you, the community, to be involved and give us suggestions. We are listening.
Yeah.
So
no one wants an explicit soon TM sort of thing.
When it's ready, TM.
Yeah.
See, this is a very difficult thing to work. I mean, let me ask you this. From a community perspective, can you tell me how many developers, designers, artists, musicians, etc. are working on Infinity Wars?
Let's see. I can say I think they've got
Teramis?
one sound guy.
Teramis. It's all about Teramis. No one else
Teramis.
but Teramis. It's just you, Teramis.
Sometimes it seems that way. He's often been our primary, only focal point of contact, though. Shumisaurus in game and on the forums is very active and terrific. Both of them are terrific. It sounds like they have 2 coders, a sound guy who they've recently brought on to add some effects. They have Robbie, who's the primary card designer. After that, it gets a bit muddled, and I sort of forget.
Okay. See, this is
It's
the
a
thing.
small team. There's 14, 15 people, 16 people, something like that.
Let's look at it from this perspective.
We're working on all this.
You know, you've got a game, you're developing things. Now, there are some people out there who are absolutely insane and nuts, and they create a game solo. And, you know, you at that point in time, you know, I actually am aware of somebody who actually built their own engine to match their game and then released it. And at that point in time, I'm like, dude, I bow down to you. I hope you are successful, because that's an insane undertaking. But when you have a certain size team, like, you know, you're not Blizzard, you don't have an entire support team, you know, you have to deal with just the few people you have. Finding that balance is difficult, because if you spend too much time inside the community forums, people are going to yell at you because you should be working on the game. If you don't spend enough time working on the game, or you spend all your time working on the game, the community gets pissed off because you don't talk to them. Now, there is this thing that is known as perceived awareness when it comes to both the perspective of the community and the perspective of the developers. Most of the time, if the issue you are most concerned about is what is being talked about, you are content. If, however, the issue you are not concerned about is being talked about. So, for example, let's say that you don't ever play campaigns. You think campaigns are shitty. They shouldn't be in the game. Let's just say you have that personality. And yet that is what the developers are currently explaining to people inside the forums. You will feel neglected, and you will feel like they don't listen to you, and you will feel like they do not talk to you. So there is this perceived notion that the developers aren't listening, and they're wasting their time because they're not working on what you believe is important. Which is why there is that sort of, do you really reveal everything you're working on? Or do you sort of hint at what's coming? Or how do you do that? And how do you balance it out with a small team and still keep things going? Now, normally, game companies have 2 to 3 community managers whose entire responsibility is to do nothing except community events, talk to the community, be that barrier between the developers and the community. But that actually invokes another problem. If I can't talk to the developers, how do I know the community manager is getting my messages across? By getting the developers still involved and having a community, I mean, it's all about balancing time, team, and money. It's a resource issue. It is always going to come down to money. Can they afford to do this? Can they afford to do that? And in the end, it actually comes down to how powerful their community is. Because if their community is really supportive and willing to dunk a few bucks in every month, that's a few bucks that will help them to buy groceries, keep the internet access going, keep the servers running, buy the licenses so that they can actually develop artwork. All of these things come into it. And it's going to be amazing. But again, it's trying to find that balance. And I'll be honest, there's not a single game company that has it right.
Yeah, well, you're never going to please all the people all of the time.
You can't.
Especially the most vocal who tend to populate forums.
The vocal minority.
Okay.
Yes, the vocal minority is something that we joke about here. But, you know, I take my hat off. Name. It would be, actually. But I take my hat off to Infinity Wars because they, in order for them to have the community they have, they need to have something about the game that draws people in. There needs to be something there. They've got something nailed down that attracts the right type of people currently. Now, it going gold, most people go, oh my gosh, once it goes from gold to beta, we get the huge new influx of players and they're going to completely crap on the community and everything we've made this is going to fail. I don't think that's happening in Infinity Wars. Not
so far. I mean, you see, every once in a while, you see somebody new come in and they have the wrong attitude, and that gets pretty hastily corrected. You don't see those people last too long. They'll get reported, they'll get warned. Either they adopt to the mores of the game and its community, or they get the ban hammer.
So there is a liberal use of the ban hammer.
I feel like...
Seems like it. They obviously, Infinity Wars won't give us numbers on who is banned. We've asked how many people have been banned, but I have seen people show up, players show up, and go all YouTube commenter on the forums or on more in chat, game chat, and then it doesn't last too long. They'll be told you really don't want to talk like that by the players, by the moderators. We can link them to our expected player behavior charter that Lightmare released a couple months ago.
The fact that they put that out there is badass.
Yeah.
References and guides for forum usage. There's a couple of games out there that could learn from something like that. I'm just saying, okay?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like the game, well, then you will communicate in a way that's appropriate to the community.
Absolutely.
And if you don't care and just be an ass, then off you go.
I think it comes down to...
It's been pretty consistently good since I've arrived in the game.
Because of the timing.
No one like you, Cedo. Yeah, I know.
You too.
Quality Australian timing.
Yeah. So I'm
gonna let you speak.
You get to speak now. It's your turn. It's your turn. I swear. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. I realized what happened there the very last time. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna wait for him to finish. I'll wait for there to be a pause. Then there was a pause. I'm like, I didn't make it in time.
I'm sorry.
It's alright.
Raise your hand. We'll call on you. You should be used to that. Got something to say?
Okay.
Yes, you in Australia.
Yeah, that guy.
Want a chip, bro?
Now, I feel like a lot of places have actually learnt from. I hate to say it, but I feel as though the first sort of big company to do the whole player toxicity and how it affects games and all that sort of stuff was sort of a combination between League of Legends and Dota, like those sorts of forums and communities where player toxicity is a huge thing. And I feel as though it's started now to filter down into a lot of the other game genres, that especially those that have that community aspect and the community focus. And I feel as though as that does filter down, everyone's going to start getting those benefits. Where it used to be, as we like to use the term, the Wild West of the internet, when it came to interactions and all this sort of stuff, as people become more accountable and the consequences become more concrete to what you can and cannot do within certain forums, under certain domains, just on the internet in general. People become, much less toxic because they're aware that their toxicity has an effect on others, but even if they're generally self-centered, B, their toxicity, will have consequences for them.
Yeah.
And so I feel Infinity Wars is taking the correct and forward-facing or forward-looking sort of stance on this attitude towards player toxicity and player interactions, and fostering that really positive community development, looking at those positives as opposed to looking at people's deficiencies.
And I think that goes back to the earliest days of the game, and maybe it's something that comes from being a kickstarted project, where you get from the beginning a community that's very interested in your game, and they don't want toxicity to ruin it, and so you start off with a strong base of players, and at least in the case of Infinity Wars, it's progressed from there and has maintained a quality community over time.
The real challenge is going to be how things go with the changes, because now, unfortunately, we have to take off our It's a Beta hat and we have to put on This is a Live Game hat. And when it comes to TCGs in a live game, we have expectations, and the community is going to have expectations, and how they manage this is going to be important. And it will either degrade the community or it will degrade the game, is really what it comes down to if they don't handle it right. So we have currently within the community a couple of concerns that involve around the cards and the decks that are currently available, such as milling and COV. Nothing is wrong with COV. I swear, it's the most horrific deck out there.
Milling, by the way.
Nothing's inherently wrong with milling. Not inherently. But, there are some concerns that are out there for the current meta. Now, meta is a big part of a TCG's future because it's what changes every time new cards come out or new decks come out or the next season, quote unquote, or series of cards comes out, because the cards will influence the meta. Meta is what people continue to play for a TCG. It's its longevity. It's its end game, literally. So how they handle that is going to be important. Now, when we were speaking before we started recording and talking and completely trolling the hell out of each other, we were talking with you about the current state of the meta and how it seems to contain the COV Oblivion, and you said Heartbreak, I believe, was also in there as well.
Heartbreak was part of the prior meta.
Was part of the prior meta.
Still, it might still be out there, but the Demon of Fear nerf took out a lot of its strength.
Well, see, little
Demon of
changes
Fear
like
was
that.
one of the very powerful rare cards, one of the most powerful rare cards.
Should it have been a legendary?
No, I don't think it should be legendary.
That.
I think it did need a change. Maybe not quite all the change that it was given, having its cost increase from 5 to 6, going from a 10/10 to a 7/7, and no morale cost. It has a 12 morale cost. It's pretty intense. So maybe 7/7, but remain a cost 5. That gives its push utility, keeps its push utility. I don't know. I just, it's like, oftentimes in games and in life, people come up with a bunch of ideas on ways to change something and just say, let's do all of it. And it seemed like maybe Demon of Fear, that was the approach they took. Yes, you on the right.
me on the right, the one in Australia. I just want to point out at this point that it's something that you often see with either in old card games when they bring in a new balance team, or with new card games with a balance team that is underexperienced in the grand scheme of things. I'm not here to say that they're bad in any way, because I think a lot of the balancing that they have done in Infinity Wars has been quite on the nose. Sorry, on the money, not on the nose. on the nose means something different here. So it's been on the money. But the tendency for lots of young developers to over-nerf, make it so unusable that it can't cause an issue for you ever again. Or to under-nerf, the fact that you make a nerf, but it really makes no grand changes. And I feel as though a lot of that comes down to either trying to make those sweeping changes to directly affect on the next patch because it's immediate and it needs changes, instead of just waiting that extra week to look at, maybe playtest it and see how it's going to affect the meta. So I look at changes like that and go, to me, that's just the mistake of an inexperienced team. And don't get me wrong, it happens in lots of games that are far more experienced. But it's just one of those sort of telltale signs of sort of impulse nerfing. And
what about...
well, sometimes it's necessary. It's also... You hate to see something go from very usable to almost unusable in the span of a couple of hours. So that's just something I want to throw in there about sometimes balancing is that difficult medium there as well.
Well, see, I would counter that with the concept that because of the fact that we don't know all of the cards they're planning on bringing out, because we don't know what they're looking at doing for, we'll say, the next wave of cards that people can buy in packs or the next what have you, there is the potential that what may seem right now to be completely a massive either impulse nerf or a quick nerf could in the end actually have viability because they've got something new coming. And we don't know. And it could be as simple as, it could have been it could have been just an over nerf. It could have been one of those, I can't deal with that one right now because I have these other ones I need to focus on. So let's totally get rid of it out of meta to give people a chance to breathe while we fix this other issue. That's also a viable possibility. Now, should the community know that's going on? Not always. But, it's at the same time, I think you're right. I think unless you've spent the past 20 years of your life doing nothing but balancing for TCGs, there's always going to be that sort of knee-jerk reaction of, ooh, and you're either going to under or over. Maybe they didn't get it right for this one. I haven't had a chance to play with this one, but the concept of it going from what it sounded like to what it is now, it seems like just almost like a waste of resources is what it feels like, just from hearing the description of it. But, that's a novice talking.
It's hard to say. I could say Lightmare likes to at least affect taking the long view of balance. And it comes up quite often. Teramis talks about it quite often on the forums because it's brought up often. And his refrain is, balance is an ongoing concern we take seriously, so on and so forth. He wrote a blog post about balance that I think
yes,
people enjoyed and liked getting that perspective from.
We read that with much scrutiny here.
Yeah, I imagine.
Oh, we did. I'll have to bring up spelling errors. No, I'm just joking. I'm teasing. It's not that bad. No.
Now the one of the issues with the Big Demon of Fear nerf that people didn't like is people traded hard to get that card. It was one of the two strongest rares, the other being a Paladin of the Flame Dawn, both very high demand. People traded quite a bit to get them, and all of a sudden, boom, down comes the ban hammer.
Yep.
My excuse for that, though, was this is probably the only time I excuse beta. This is the time to do it. Not so much in the future, but when it still has the beta tag. And you do have to expect that there could be some radical changes.
Well, see, this is the danger of an online game, of an online TCG. If we're talking about Magic the Gathering back in the old days, if they wanted to quote-unquote nerf a card, it got banned from tournament.
Right.
That was the way you dealt with it.
Redefinition of the Oracle.
Yeah. Exactly. And, what you
I had two people just go... And two people just go, yeah, there, that had no idea what I just said, by the way.
Actually, you want to believe it? Naudilent is a Magic, old school Magic player.
I played a long time ago. Years and years ago.
Actually, he was looking for a replacement for Magic the Gathering.
When I found Infinity Wars.
When he found Infinity Wars.
Makes sense, really.
I just say yeah to you because it shuts you up.
Yeah, I know that.
We agree, let's move on.
Exactly.
Exactly. A lot, surprisingly.
But, you know, when it comes to an online game, there is the danger of cards that are, especially in TCGs, that you trade for or what have you, all of a sudden just having their numbers change and not being worth what they were anymore. And it's a very gray area for me. Because one, if you allow people to have those cards that, let's say there's a pre-nerf and a post-nerf card, because, you know, you have, you know, season 1, season 2 cards, whatever, however you wish to look at it. How do you implement into the code what you allow to use in certain locations? It adds a whole nother layer of development cycles that can actually become bloatware for a game. Especially if they don't actually do the instantiation correctly, etc. And that's development terms. I'm sorry, I'm losing you. The glazed over look is there. See, you mentioned something and I mentioned something. Yay, now we just have to get Naudilent to mention something that nobody has any clue about at all, and we can all get the glazed look, and it's a brilliant show.
I'll work on that.
Yes, but, you know, this is the thing. When you deal with a trading card game online, there's going to be temptation from the developers to handle a nerf by just going on the card. I mean, Hearthstone does it, even. So it's. But then again, Hearthstone isn't a trading card game. It's a collectible card game. There's a big difference between that. In that section, I can understand that because everyone's impacted by it, because no one's trying to sell cards or what have you. But I hope that Lightmare understands that they can't do that anymore. Not with a trading card game.
Economic aspect.
That's a big part of it. But I mean, like he says, you've got people who are pissed because they've maybe traded away some massive cards just to get their hands on these couple of cards. And now those cards got nerfed. Now, if it was a physical game, you couldn't do that. And a lot of people are coming from old school physical games into this online spectrum. And I just hope that they don't do that again. I hope that in the future what they do instead is bring in a card and then say, well, this card can't be used in or won't show up in draft decks, so to speak. Or, you know, if you wish to do the constructed play, you've got 3 different types: unbanned, banned, and whatever. You know, maybe implement those. Bring in Two-Headed Giant and let us play with the original demons. I'm not asking for much.
Just get Two-Headed Giant.
It is, all of this is one giant massive point to get Two-Headed Giant. Because honestly, one game has tried to do it. They failed at it. I want to see a successful implementation. And I honestly think you guys are the ones to do it. So please do it. I'm just saying.
I think it would really excite the fan base like nothing else.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no telling where it is on the priority board, or if it's something that Lightmare even feels comfortable implementing right now. It doesn't sound, just from what I'm gathering, it sounds like it's a ways off. But they have their minimum resources, and
you never know, if the game explodes, minimum resources will rise. So
this is true.
Yeah.
This is very true.
They should probably maybe advertise. I've been watching the Steam front page looking for gold release, Infinity Wars TCG.
You do understand that there's an entire methodology behind what gets on Steam front page, right?
I've heard that it's not the most, I don't know, scientific method.
There are certain methodologies. Having spoken with quite a few people who deal with Steam releases, be it through Greenlight or even passing Greenlight through Steam, there is actually qualifiers, and they are not allowed to be known. And we're about to be attacked by I was about to call it a Chua. Wow. That is just too great. But yes, it's not as easy to just say, quote unquote, get that front page access on Steam. However, There are some amazing methods to use for marketing using what the foundation of the community is already making. The Master and Apprentice program is kind of cool. Although, did you get a chance to recheck to see if they fixed the nerfing that they did to the experience originally?
I have not, in fact,
Okay.
because I was away.
No, that's fair enough. See, unfortunately, our poor Naudilent hasn't had a chance to play this past week, and he's been busy at Dragon Con.
It's a great time. You should all envy me for it.
Oh, I do.
We do.
I do. I envy you, but at the same time, I have Eurogamer this month.
I'm not even going to PAX this year. Screw both of you.
PAX, yeah.
Do you know, I'll tell you how hard it was to get to Eurogamer. I am foregoing food to go to Eurogamer. But that's the nature of being.
That's going to have mixed results for you.
Live on passion, Pseudo. Live on passion.
I do live on passion. But yes, so they can use the community that is currently in place to actually foster a very, very rich sort of marketing campaign. Now, marketing is not easy. I've spoken with quite a few marketing representatives for independent developers, and it's not, especially when the people who are involved in your game are in a different time zone. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Do you know how frustrating it is for me to log in and go, well, maybe I'll speak with somebody. Oh, everybody's asleep. Sad face. Oh, there should be activity from the oh, that's right. They're 12 hours ahead. It's a little complicated. This is why I find it really interesting, despite the fact that this is an Australian company. Taramis lives in PST time zone.
Yes, he's in Arizona, I believe.
You know, it's like they've got to spread across team.
To me.
They've got to spread across team, and that to me is amazing. Because if you can hit those time zones, you can do things with your community, like having community-led events. Like, we're going to monitor the servers for the next 3 hours, and the person who is able to beat Puffy the most in that 3 hours gets something. Or, you know, there's so many different ways to do it, but the hype actually, in a way, has to come from the community. Magic the Gathering, do you remember how it advertised?
Poorly, with really bad TV commercials about goblins and what were the other ones? Elves.
I recall that a bit.
Wow. For those of you who are too young to remember.
Next, I think. The Duel of Champions? Not the expansion, but the actual Duel of Champions. Between goblins and elves back in Onslaught block. Before
I think I've just blocked a lot of that out. Simply because the last thing I'd want is people to associate me with that kind of product presentation.
Yeah, right?
Being a role-playing game player and now into this Magic thing, I was already nerd enough.
Wow. Okay, but yes.
I deny everything.
You can't prove it. There weren't pictures. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no, there are definitely pictures of me then.
Was your hair like out there like this?
Oh god, yes it was.
Fantastic.
I want to see.
Let's find those.
I want to see. I want to see Dr. Marsh with Marsh hair. All right. So yes, but what it comes down to is making the time for it as well. You know, I'm going to be curious to know how they structure things. I'd love to know if they've got actual, teams that are just purely dedicated to marketing, or teams that are purely dedicated to development, or teams that are purely dedicated to community. Because if they don't, and they've made the level of game that they've made with the community they've made now, and they're all spreading and sharing the tasks, my hat's going to go off to them, because I know how hard that is. It is insanely difficult.
Yeah, I've heard that there's a person who is the marketing person. But
yes,
all that's very nebulous. I really don't know what that person does.
Well, what do you expect a marketing person to do? Let's start there. What is the community wanting? A quote-unquote, what would you guys believe is the proper choice for marketing? Because we've already discussed, people would love to see it on the Steam front page, but you realize there's a lot more behind the scenes with that than just simply, hey, we've taken a game live. Well, do you know how many
Every
games
game
go
wants
live?
to be Steam front page.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So what would the community want to see? What would make the community feel that the game was being marketed in an appropriate manner? Silence.
Trying to score. Well, I'm thinking how to just. Well, you have your GameSpots, your IGNs, your and your YouTube streaming, Twitch streaming people, right?
Yes, and
And
they are
that's that
interactive
reach
with
out.
us.
Not just responding passively. Hey, we'd like to talk to you, but reaching out.
They did.
So
That's the thing.
And I imagine a lot of other people have better answers than I can supply, since marketing far away from anything that I do.
That's the thing, you know.
That's right. It's far away from anything.
And it's
I
also
do as
costly,
well.
of course, advertising.
It is costly, but at the same time, it depends on how you go about doing it. You know,
Yeah.
Infinity Wars has a rather interesting thing I've noticed with their social media. They love to share the people who talk about Infinity Wars, and they love to talk to people. I mean, we've made mention on a show, we'd love to get a developer on. A week later, I got a tweet. Did you guys want a developer? You know, they
Good.
do pay attention. It's not just blindly retweeting things. They seem to be sitting there reviewing things, listening to the things that are being said. And this is not just from us. I mean, there are other people who are streaming Infinity Wars. There are people who are putting up Infinity Wars on YouTube. The community is building a whole amazingness thing. The best way to make use of that without breaking the bank, so to speak, is to use the community. Not like you guys are slaves or anything and should be carrying the weight of a game's marketing all by yourself. But, you know, everyone, again, has their own perspective of what they believe is fantastic marketing. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I know
crowdsourced marketing is very much a new thing, isn't it?
It's part of it, yes.
That is the thing now.
It's not
and for what is
thing.
effectively a grassroots organization, really, like Lightmare. It's done some okay stuff before, but Lightmare as a production company, this is their first, like, verging on that, you know, very premium product, if you can call it. I don't know what the words are for that. I know the words are very important as well.
It's almost AAA.
No, it's in design, yes, almost AAA.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to that sort of stage, there's a certain amount of, very explicit marketing you have to do on very concrete platforms and mediums, going, try this game. But then you have to look at, like, cost effectiveness and all that sort of stuff. And I look at it and go, like, I live in the country in which this game is being developed. And the only reason I know about this game is because I do this podcast. That says a little bit of something.
Well, my question will throw back out at you, because I like being sort of argumentative today. All right, so let's say that they do advertising on the radio. How often do you listen to the radio?
Every day.
For how long?
At least an hour. So an hour each way, so 2 hours.
How many radio stations are there in Australia?
A buttload.
Okay, so that's going to be cost effective for them to try to get something on the radio. That's going to be a pain in the ass. Right there, we know that. All right, let's talk about television. How often do you watch TV?
I don't even own one. So
okay,
never.
So that even if they're advertising on TV right now, you would not even notice. Fair enough. Solved. Now, do you buy any gaming magazines?
Oh, God, no. Does anyone?
Oh, yes, some people do. But you don't, so you wouldn't even notice if they're advertising there. Do you use an ad blocker when you go to websites?
It depends on what websites.
But you do use one.
I like to be... Yes, I do.
Do you use it on Twitch?
Like to be sustainable in my ad blocking.
Right, but do you use an ad blocker on Twitch?
Only for people I despise.
Okay.
So you. But no, I don't really watch Twitch that much anymore.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Here's the thing. Everything I'm just mentioning are your commonplace types of advertising markets, and yet every single one of them is the kind of thing that's either going to be way too expensive for a small company or completely unsustainable because people have decisions that they don't like to whitelist. They just blanketly use an ad blocker and never look at anything again. So how does one really market when you don't have the old school methodologies to be able to take care of it? And that's why I stress again,
I agree with
use your
that.
community. And if you guys want to see this be successful, I almost want to say, take up the mantle. Take up the mantle and help out, because honestly, whoever sits in a marketing perspective for a game that is coming up, that's indie developed, that doesn't have billions of dollars behind it, or the biggest name studio like, say, EA or BioWare or whatever behind their name to handle all that marketing, it's going to be the community that's going to make it. And you guys are awesome.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's a certain amount of social media marketing that you have to do, but also I think that there needs to be, like, at some point you need to approach, I don't know, like those gaming media sites, like you,
they
like
do.
us. But
do you know how hard it is to get a game
places
reviewed?
like Kotaku and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I know. Do you know how hard it is as reviewers to get a specific game? It's just it's equally as hard. But at certain points, you sort of need to push for that stuff. I don't know. It's not my responsibility to market their games, Pseudo.
No, it's not. But
what
all
I'm
I
saying
was doing
is
was
that
an intellectual exercise to see if you could figure it out.
All right. Confused man in the middle. What is your question?
Not a question, but a comment. I just happened to notice a thread. I'm looking at the forums, and somebody wrote a thread. Official release and zero advertising? And Teramis has responded, and mentioning Valve. You know, we're not Valve. Can't just order Valve to tell their player base that Infinity Wars is coming out of early access. There's no reason for any player here to be concerning themselves over this subject. Let us do our jobs. Let us handle it. Enjoy the game. There's more, but that's the summation.
Yeah, that's not condescending at all.
I am looking forward to speaking with Teramis. I
really am. But as people that are highly interested in a game, I don't think you can say at any point that this doesn't concern you. Let us do our jobs. Because at that point,
I think
it concerns me even more that you would make that comment.
Did he actually say those particular words?
This was a direct quote. Now, you should understand something about Teramis.
Foot-and-mouth comedy?
It'll come across that way. He can come across as very brusque.
Awesome.
I'm gonna lie.
He does not. Yeah. He doesn't really hold back or soften his tone.
He doesn't bullshit.
And that he doesn't at all. Now and when he's talking in game, when he's moderating in game, which he doesn't do as much anymore. Shumisaurus takes care of most of that. But when he's in game answering questions, and people are persistent in some respect, he will not soften. So he can come across very blunt, very brusque. This is how it is, and in a very leave it at that manner. So while I think he's he's pretty effective as a community manager, and he does a lot of good things, he certainly does not endear particularly new players to him. He can really rankle people.
I think that depends on
what you're looking for. That's just his personality.
For.
It's just how he communicates.
Well,
so I find it kind of funny, but a lot of people don't.
But see,
the fact that he has that personality and is the community manager, I love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it on a sort of
There's
meta
some
level.
cosmic irony there.
But see, that's just it. I mean, okay, let me put it to you this way. I have been involved in quite a few game releases. I have been involved with quite a few community managers. And I will tell you, there is a particular type of community manager I hate. I hate the community manager that does not answer questions. I hate the community manager that likes to falafel with their words and just go wow, 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 but nothing ever comes out. I would prefer somebody who is blunt, saying, this is how it is. Suck it up, folks. And I prefer a community manager that has a no bullshit kind of tolerance policy to the things they say and what they take. You know, it's one of those, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but you don't have the full story. I appreciate your perspective, but honestly, until you get the full story, there's not much you're going to say that's going to help change anything, influence anything, other than make things more shit by being toxic. So just shut up. I love community managers like that.
He's very responsive, so while his tone may be abrasive at times, he's responding to you, like in this thread. Oh, I invite you while we're all chatting to visit the Infinity Wars webpage. Just pull it up. Just pull it up.
The Infinity Wars webpage.
You can hear me murder my keyboard.
Yes.
Oh, and Teramis has got to type like 80 to 100 words a minute. That or he's got a great copy-paste system. I used to be. When I was a guild leader, I was about that.
You can't be a guild leader without typing at least 120 words per minute, otherwise you'd never get anything done.
It helped a lot.
Infinity Wars. Still says beta on
in
mine.
Beta.
Yes. They haven't updated
I like it.
Page. Yeah.
Let's see if they fix it for... No, well, we've got you in both locations.
Not logged in, still says beta.
Yep.
Aww.
I got my region says Australia, so and mine says beta. I'm assuming yours is US.
Mine's all over the place. They
haven't changed it yet.
Depends on wherever I want to be. I'll tell you what.
That's
brilliant.
Interesting.
That is absolutely brilliant. But, however, we are at a point in time where we get to say our final words on community. We get to thank you, Naudilent, for being here to listen to Marsh and I extol our own brand of humor. You've
basically ramble.
Quite enjoyed it.
Did you learn anything?
We enjoyed having you.
I've learned that mornings are just as abominable as I remember them being.
I was hoping you learned something from us. Everyone should realize mornings suck.
Just listening, not just today, but overall, has broadened some of my perspective on trading card games. I played quite a lot of them back in my Magic games, because at that time Magic Success produced all these games that followed. Most of them you've probably never heard of, or certainly no one now will have ever heard of.
Bloodlines, Vampire.
Vampire might have some staying power, but Weavern, Rage.
Wow, Rage.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of these old things. So
I forgot about Rage.
And now in the new era of digital card games, it'll allow me to approach, for instance, the Hex beta, which I just got an invite toward, with a broader perspective.
Marsh. I had to do that.
If you want our opinions, look at the live stream video.
I noticed that, so I'm going to have to check some of that out.
Don't have enough time to deal with that.
Yeah, that's my I don't know how much time I'm going to devote to Hex, especially since I've got a Shroud of the Avatar and Star Citizen to look into from DragonCon promotions. Lots of things to do. Lots of games to fool around with.
Hex is something we'll be looking at Top Draw. We have made a conscious decision to not do that next. We're going to give them some time.
Yeah.
And that's all we're going to say on that topic.
That's all we're going to say on that topic.
Fine.
We are going to give them some time, and we think that's a fair thing to do. But other than that, I appreciate the fact that you, as a member of the community, decided, I am going to get involved in something about the community and get my voice heard and the voice of others heard. And I just have to say thank you so much for taking the time, especially considering how I know how early it is for you. And you have been an absolute trooper, an absolute trooper to be here with us. And
I've had a lot of fun.
I have to do this because it's kind of cool. Do you have any names you want to give a shout out to?
Sure, yeah.
Pull up your friends list.
Well, yeah, I mean, I took notes. I took a lot of notes. Some of the people who had a lot to say, and most of these are longtime members of the community. Adora Bear, who was relentlessly positive about Lightmare, not with blinders on, but always has some good input. Very experienced player. WW Knight, who's a very long-time backer of the game. ST Sakuragi, who has a lot of great perspective and experience. Brings a almost very mathematical view, I think, to the game.
Math.
P. or P. Joel J, who had some good things to say about card wording and action log. Just some things that Lightmare still has as work in progress. The game, Zahiri, and some of the streamers out there. Nexus Tavern, who has a terrific community, has a lot of giveaways. Nova Blue, who's kind of stepped back from IW a bit, but who's one of the big content creators. And everybody behind the Infinity Network, which is the premier unofficial Infinity Wars resource. Chapmandu, Cthulhu Girl, Gravecrawler, all the people behind that really deserve a shout out. And if you're listening to this and interested in getting into Infinity Wars, check out the Infinite Network. Let me make sure I've got that right.
The link will be down below.
And in fact, it's actually promoted on by Infinity Wars. So the Infinite Network. Great resource, lots of articles, and a searchable database. So, yes, I'd like to mention all of them. And thank you for giving me that opportunity to shout out to people.
Well, it's all about the
community.
Right.
You more than deserve it.
Absolutely. And, like I said, I'm tapping you to, if you've got questions you want me to throw at Teramis, let me know. I'm going to be digging into things on a crazy level because I'm insanely excited by independent developers, which is why we do the Data Mine, which is our Thursday show. We're actually doing a show all about AI and the psychology of AI. And we've got a researching specialist coming on to talk about the development, and it's going to be exciting. And oh my gosh, squee! But on that note, Naudilent, it has been an absolute pleasure to not only meet you and have you for a second time, but to let you be the voice of the community. And you're such
hopefully I did well at it.
A calm voice.
They'll let me know.
A very calm voice. Dr. Marsh, as always, it is a pleasure to be in your radiance. I don't know how I'm able to survive it. I totally expect to burst into flames getting so close to you the way Icarus does.
SPF 100, my dear. SPF 100.
But it has been an absolute joy and pleasure having you as well. And it's also great to know that your cat and your dog can behave. Whereas my cat meowed.
I know, for almost an hour and a half. It was amazing.
But yes, on that note, this is Pseudo for Top Draw here at MMOBuff.TV, and next week, Dr. Marshmallow sadly won't be with me. However, I may make him do a brief recording with me so we can properly give out our score for Infinity Wars. And if you were unaware, we are a bit unrepentant on how we do it. But we'll have Teramis, hopefully. Fingers crossed, schedules crossing. This is how we do it. Okay, and on that note, it's definitely time to end the show.
Yeah.
Do you want to add your own song, Naudilent?
No, for the sake of all of us, I think I'll forego singing.
I will state, though, Infinity Wars, happy birthday. Welcome to the TCG world. May you live long and prosper.
Oh God, no.
Hey, they had some Star Trek cards, I had to do it. It had to be done.
They really
Star
do.
Trek is a thing better left unmentioned. Yeah.
But yes, on that note.
Actually, I'm a Star Trek heathen. I like Voyager, so.
Wow. And on that note,
Let
I'm
it go,
definitely
Dr.
ending it. We're going to
Marshmallows.
get hate mail now. We're going to get, like, threads.
Hate mail for ages.
For all the things. But yes, thank you so much. And bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.